What is the rule of law? It is the principle that no one is above the law. It means a country is governed by clear, predictable and publicly known laws rather than by arbitrary decisions or personal power of individual leaders. In essence, it means that everyone is equal before the law. Uganda boasts a favorable climate across its savanna landscape, but its political terrain is increasingly becoming turbulent. Many questions are being raised by citizens as recent incidents of alleged human rights violations cast a doubt of uncertainty over the country. Ironically, some of these violations are said to involve institutions mandated to protect those rights and hold offenders accountable. Several developments in the country suggest that the rule of law has steadily eroded, leaving the three arms of government, the executive, parliament and the judiciary, under scrutiny as the public trust in these institutions continue to decline. Constitutional amendments made over the years, including the removal of term limits and presidential age limit, are often cited as examples of decisions that have generated political controversy. Critics argue that the framers of the Constitution intended to place limits on executive power to prevent the mistakes of the past from reoccurring. We spoke to the human rights lawyer George Musisi and constitutional lawyer Dan Wandera Ogalo.
In an environment which puts military authority above civilian authority undermines the rule of law, creates a military system in place, in essence. What we have now, that's why in so many aspects, even a person, a state minister, by order of precedence is above a CDF, is above an IGP, because the effect was to put civilian authority above military authority. What we have now, where the army arrests, keeps in incommunicado detention, sometimes releases as it wishes, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it brings those people eventually to courts of law, is wrong, because the power to arrest and investigate crimes, especially where they pertain civilians, is within the Uganda police.
It seems Lukwago's problem, I don't know whether it is true or not, but I'm just giving from what I'm reading on Twitter by the army commander, saying that Lukwago, I think, wanted to serve, had summoned him, which of course is not true. The summons is given by the judiciary. Lukwago has no authority to issue a summons. But the executive is treating a summons from the judiciary like as if it is Lukwago who issued it. So you see that the judiciary is being pulled into this thing, and it is silent. See where the rule of law gets into trouble.
We asked them to explain how the executive, which is responsible for implementing laws passed by parliament, has performed its role and whether it has overstepped its mandate.
Between parliament and the executive, then there is no rule of law there. They are supposed to work together, but they're not supposed to work in concert. They're not supposed to be fused. And what we are seeing is an increasing desire to have parliament co-opted as part of the executive.
When the former AGG Bet Kamya was coming up with what you call lifestyle audit because of corruption, what did the president say? Kamya, go slow on this, otherwise these corrupt people will take the money outside and not invest it here. You are not allowing an institution to do its work. That is an erosion of rule of law.
Parliament is expected to provide oversight and enact laws that conform to the principles of good governance. However, it has increasingly come under scrutiny, with critics accusing it of acting as a rubber stamp for President Museveni's executive.
Our constitutional dispensation thought that Parliament would be, on behalf of the people, be the strongest check onto the executive. But what we've been seeing increasingly is that the executive wants to determine how Parliament does its business. And yes, the legal way would have been if maybe government brings bills and lets Parliament process them independently. But we've seen, for instance, when they were processing the UPDF amendment, where the interim caucus sat and said, we have agreed to pass it as is, which meant that Parliament was more of a rubber stamp.
I can't see a situation where I can put a blame on Parliament that it is eroding the rule of law.
The judiciary is tasked with giving life to the law through interpretation and adjudication without fear or favor, regardless of the person's wealth, status, and political influence.
Instead of harassing the courts to do what you are doing.
However, several incidents have raised concerns about whether the institution has consistently fulfilled its constitutional mandate.
We have non-derogable rights, like the right to a habeas corpus, where people file habeas corpus applications in court. They are fixed 2 weeks later. Habeas corpus, you run to court saying this person is missing and their lives might be at stake. Court fixes it 2 weeks later. Then it gets a flimsy affidavit in reply from a statutory officer denying, no interrogation. It's adjourned for a ruling 2 weeks later. Where does that leave the non-derogable right to a habeas corpus? Where does that leave the life of that person who is missing?
I think I'm a bit bothered with the trial of Dr. Besigye, the way it is being conducted. It is not looking good when you see that, when you read that the judge has walked out when an accused is speaking.
The security forces are equally mandated to uphold the rule of law. However, the police, which is primarily responsible for maintaining law and order, has often found itself at crossroads, with critics arguing that the military has increasingly assumed roles that ordinarily fall under civilian policing.
For instance, if I have a violation, I should be able to report to police. But now a person goes missing, it's either the statutory agencies that have abducted them, or even police cannot even dare open up a case or even investigate the circumstances.
So what needs to be done?
And it is the time, I think, to have an independent body hold a national dialogue to review where we came from and the problems we have had, and then we chart a way forward.
Human rights are fundamental freedoms and protections that belong to every person simply because they are human. They also stipulate that they are inherent regardless of every person's gender or status in society. And they are meant to ensure that every human being is treated equally with fairness and dignity. Sudhir Yarhanga, NTV, Kampala.